All right, I'm going to take that as a no. Cool. All right. First is the topic, queer people use more drugs, but public health isn't the answer. Gaslights and harasses them, forcing us to bend institutions that hate us and psychologically violent. Fuck the U.S. federal government. Fuck the child or healthcare industry. Forceful 17. Response had over 3 times the average rate of HIV infection. Also, high risk of illicit drug use experience with healthcare were highly negative. 28% reporting having postponed medical care due to discrimination. 90% were refused care. 28% reported that they had been harassed in medical settings. And next is the K. The subject emerges through loss and able to express desires through language, which produces a constitutive black desires for black project fantasies of completed and queer bodies. The one or the like ignore the wording here. The topics investment in the imaginary futures, proliferate reproductive futurism, and sustains the fantasy of the child, which is just a structural antagonism of queerness. Settlement 98. Politics compels us to experience reality and fantasy, ensuring the stability of identities and structure of different perspective. The Vita shape reality condensation expresses the will to install one in our fantasy and avoids converting the emptiness and symbolic. The politics as imaginary relations that can be for small equivalent inherent in the linguistic system. The signifier confers that in which we can never fully we can never succeed in fully coinciding. We can only be signifiers of self politics in the politics direction of future politics. Conform to the temporal desire figures of meaning produced in hope of filling the gap. Libidinal position drives unstable carry the stabilizing forth the future of which to which it appeals marks the impossible place of the imaginary past universe subject produce the figure of politics. The child has been enshrined in figure as the figure who for whom the order must be held in perpetual trust. The image works the discipline political discourse by consigning its collective futurity, and this culminates in queer overkill. The futuristic political discourse of debate imposes a form of brutal excessive violence that murders the life forms of queer beyond the confines of death. Stanley 11. Overkill against such violence as it pushes the body beyond death. The aim is not an specific life, but ending of all queer life. The queers approximately nothing. The task of killing must go beyond normative life. Overkill functions in order. A panic defense murder becomes so enraged. Those discover sexuality were forced to protect themselves. Queers are specters of their life whose threat is so unimaginable that one is forced to push them back out of time category. Human judge assumes generality. It only activates the specific human names those who can stand before the law. Human makes the nothing necessary. Queer inhabits none of that is perpetual. Fed to the human queer is negative double liberal democracy overkill. Concept liberal democracy, and thus the role of Val is both the debater who best methodologically resists overkill. They can't weigh the framework versus K. If we win, the starting point is anti-queer. They don't help them leverage the endpoint of its representations and vote asked to embrace the death drive. Only an unwavering affirmation of queer negativity can collapse the symbolic organism of society that requires the exclusion of queer bodies. The fermentation impossible. They'll pick optimism, but will we endorse pessimism? Beating 12. Based on single integration, we can't deposit alternative predictions. We have an entire world destroyed. It's impossible to imagine life worth living except for both queerness is powerful and the negative. The death drive is a constant eruption of shorter within symbolic. The death drive will always produce role powers, always contracting antagonistic subject with to manage after a riot. Apparatus still against such weapons. The logic of identity. There's no subject we can solely contain. Revolt. We identify with the negativity drive away from identity. Be represented. Queerness is opposition to the governing fantasy of identities, and queer negative queerness suffers us from understanding desire. And epistemology comes first is critical for queer and trans life in the heteronormative world. Twist is then await. Gender is part of political framing as a symbolic system. Gender shapes our world. Gender ideology structure the social world. Power relations. Ideology is the image of male, female, or male versus females. The natural dualism of masculinity. The structured against social supporting masculinity is not a way of being that can be open to attack as deviant. They can also be embraced as alternative to hegemonic power. Such challenges to hegemonic masculinity. Structure political debate. Their advantage symbols frame and debate. Whether anything falls outside of this frame can be dismissed using gender to organize violent positions of war and peace. Not only feels the balance of debate, but includes consideration of options and issues that fall outside the binary framework altogether. And we're going to preempt that call stuff. Fatty fantasies of the death of the human race are exactly what obsessed over by settlers through settler futurity. Settlers justify imperial expansion based on the good of the human race, like Christianizing children in the Americas and Africa. Indigenous and queer people both face violence at the same hand as the hand of the child. Dali 18. Narratives of should contemplate endings as a way to for settlers to persist. Fantasy of extinction becomes the best for symbolic preservation for the laying the end. The settler desire conceals the hope that someone will intervene to show it's not really necessary for that the settlers can say to make their own redemption. Extinction is active self-preservation, deferring the hard reckoning and reckoning and avoiding making real changes that might alter our condition. But every moment we know, so we will be awakened, still be here. And onto the framing. Communicative spaces like debate form a heteronormative hyperreality, creating signification through gender gender through the signifier or the signifier reproduction, furthering queerness fungible to create different forms of anti-queerness, further excluding for the conversation form versus content distinction. And 6/12. Issues between queer concerns heteronormative mainstream queer bodies hover outside due to the lack of realness within reproductive sexuality, not permitted to communicate due to lack of ground of restriction of heterosexuality. Queer questions a semiotic reality within the heteronormative. The signifier never materializes, re-signifying gender of an extension of the individual. Re-signification of gender creates creation not traceable because gender organizing norms situate oneself through these norms. And educators fears of the compulsory reproduction of the child, their defense of good education will sublimate queerness under the will of productivity. Thus, the role of the judge is to embody the bad educator, element 17. Queerness is negative education or futurism indoctrinate children what ought to be not what is. Bad education teaches us that nothing. Child wants to be upset when he sees, or a child wants to be upset he sees without, he upset everything he sees without knowing what he does. The education becomes compulsory reproduction, posturing the child in order to deny negativity. And onto the underview. One, surrender to queerness structures like FIAT and the requirements for legal names to be used into entries for certain tournaments. For an example of how debates are structured against the proof over queer structures that are theory engages to compensate. It solves one, or A, queer theory spreads further with a lot of queer debaters like me to get our message out further to inspire others who feel tired of the structure of FIAT because it inherently damns queerness. The impact is supercharged because it's finals and it's recorded. B, our linked isolates scientific structure debate that favors focus on normality. Which the queer theory is unable to engage in. This means you should be epistemic suspect of any of their answers to our arguments, and debating this current structure is bad. If we fix the cycle of structure of debate, then we solve for the link which serves as an impactor into any theory arguments. And D, fiat is illusory, but queer violence is not. There's a beyond fiat implication of furthering queerness, but there isn't for voting for the 700th extinction impact of the debate season. And E, debate constantly opposes the queer people like Coben getting misgendered twice and mentioning having an anxiety attack over it in the 2A, but still losing them 2-1. So much for equality people on their side of the perpetrator and ignore suffering. And F, surrendering to queerness comes to your theory or case, because if we prove that you must surrender to queerness, we vote that you're proof that you just was bad, and there is an obligation to vote for the debaters for pushing forward queer literature. This recruits a clear theory as my opponents to see that if they misgender me, vote them down, and they then sent in tab lessons schools and wiki, it's predictable. Drop the debaters key to set precedents norms. They literally spectated by last round. They know how big of a deal it is. Accessibility outweighs on theory and key to engagement, and don't let them weigh the case to the K. Classify FIAT is illusory, and like letting cishet problems into our movement is bad.
Okay, great. Let me get a timer. Okay. Anyone not ready? Okay, great. How am I, as an Indigenous queer man, supposed to interact with the app?
You can explain why your theory of power is wrong. You can read like stuff like queer optimism. Like there's a number of ways.
Okay, so you still like actively endorse the debate space, correct?
No.
Why?
Why would we endorse the debate space?
Because you're debating in it.
Okay, that doesn't mean we endorse it. We're forced to debate in it because that's a good way for us to get our, that's our way of getting our message out.
Why do you use Indigenous and Black people only once in your case?
What do you mean?
You said I'm gonna preempt the epistemological stuff of, and then you read like the settler's view of whatever. Why do you use Indigenous and Black people only once?
Should we read more stuff about it?
No, I'm asking you why you only use them once.
Should we use Black violence, which I don't experience?
Then why do you bring it up at all?
Because it's important to consider like multiple perspectives.
Then why not just make it all about Indigenous?
Time? Huh?
Then why not just make it all about Indigenous and Black harm?
Because I'm not Indigenous or Black, and also like I'm a queer person.
Okay. So would you consider yourself an alien in the debate space?
Would I consider myself an alien in the debate space? What does that mean?
I mean, you can interpret it however you want, just like what alienation means to you.
Okay, but I need you to define alienation so I can answer that.
Like, you're not like the norm of the debate space, correct?
I think that queer people are discriminated against in the debate space.
I know, I'm specifying you. Are you the norm in the debate space?
I think that me as a white debater gains a lot of privilege. However, I think that as a queer person, we often are excluded.
Okay, so wait, hold on.
I mean, we can, by the way, we can like, if you want, we can read more stuff about Black and Indigenous people, and they are.
No, I don't want that. So just to clarify,
wait, you don't want us to read more about Black and Indigenous people? Okay.
No, because I think, because you said you were white, and I think that's like white saviorism. So
Wait,
I wouldn't want
that white saviorism if we account for multiple like groups in our theory.
Because you're saving Black and Indigenous people by advocating for them just to toss them out at the end of the round.
Wait, like not tossing them out at the end of the round.
Like, no, after this round, I don't think you're gonna really care about what Indigenous or Black people face. So that's white saviorism.
Why?
Like, because like you're using Black and Indigenous people in the debate space to win, which I think is
bad. I'm not. So I don't, wait, what?
I personally don't think that you should read any more stuff about Black and Indigenous people. That's time. I'm gonna set prep. Go running prep.
I'm just confirming your pronouns are they, them, right? Yeah. Yes. No. Okay, thanks. Okay, I have 2 minutes left, so it's just gonna be my performance and then the case.
Can you send? Is it in the
Yeah.
doc?
Hold on one sec. I need to make it a Word doc.
Okay. And you said the order was the performance then case?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else or just the case?
No, I'm just gonna be like exempting like the
Okay.
rest, whatever.
Cool.
But there's not like any theory shells or anything. Okay.
Cool. 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 Cool.
Okay. So if anyone is not ready.
Sorry, I'm downloading it from the.
Okay. That's cool. Okay. So did you download it?
Yeah, I have it downloaded now.
Okay.
Let me mute and then I'm good.
Great. Okay. So just a quick trigger warning. There's gonna be mentions of violence towards people deemed deviant by the debate space. So yeah. Okay.
Well, Link, my opponent doesn't embrace alienation. They don't refuse the debate space. They contribute to the anti-alienation of the debate space by centering whiteness in their case. Part 1, the alienation of myself. Who would have thought I would, this is like an experience I had with somebody else. Who thought I would have had, I would go against someone racist? I know I didn't, but I mean, you never truly know who someone is until they make it present. I mean, I guess they said a racial slur would make them, show them the real them. Maybe I shouldn't have called them out and around. Maybe that would have been better for my safety, but who knows? Who would have thought a group of white people from a school would come to me? I was alone while I was waiting for my dad to pick me up. How many white people does it take to break down and try to get you to falsely admit you didn't say slur? Maybe it would have worked if there was more than 4. Who knows? Who would have thought that you wouldn't, who would have thought he would try to tell my coach, like, I was the bad guy for pointing out, of course his coach gave me a half-ass apology. I mean, look, it would look bad if he didn't, but this guy so actively competes. The only person is me. I'm the only person harmed. I'm not the faggot who lied about my opponent saying a racial slur, because of course, they would believe the white person over me. Even someone in this tournament is acquainted with them. How fun seeing a reminder that no matter how hard I try, my words will never weigh the same as a white person's. No, I'm the alien. As long as his team is there, I will stay the alien. I'm the unwanted alien at every tournament. Part 2, the debate's alienation of deviant bodies. Bring the weight. The hierarchy of all the debate puts whites on top and everyone else beneath them. Told to act, dress, and sound like them. Use a value and valuitarian. Be topical. Embrace whiteness in order to win, or else you're a deviant alien polluting the space. Cultural and behavior barriers exist in the national debate community, contribute to the environmental hostile racial, ethnic, and gender sexual difference. If the images of the national debaters is signified by a white male, and he only proves body, and And the stylistic procedures of those bodies become standard, which while all bodies are evaluated, their practices, behaviors, and identities become models which upon which other must sacrifice in order to pursue the ballot or the win. It is this combination of cultural values, behaviors, practices, and signifies the flesh that remains the barriers of exclusion of other bodies and identities. Stylistic procedures are developed and maintained through a system of privilege alongside minority participants because the stylistic procedures of the community concern the same parameters of identity and performance. Stylistic includes bodily performance, how we style the body, to how the body signifies rhetorical practices. Not simply the stylistic procedures relevant to the actual debate competition itself, but the social and cultural stylistic practices of the debate committee relevant to the performance of race, gender, and class and sexuality. The stylistic norms of the debate of privileges stylistic is a white, straight, economically privileged male, then clearly indicated by the statistical representation of the heights of competitive success and the differences between the marked and the individual performances according to stylistic identity-based norms, richly and or differently bodies perform the according to cultural norms of the debate community. You can often meet genuine appearance, standardized language practices, doing cultural practices, at least while participating in the debate space, and says that students of color are performingly white in order to have an opportunity of in the debate competition. Acting black or brown is problematic because those performative identities are not privileged and successful in terms of participation. In fact, they're deemed as obvious and different negative differential as how the debate community actively operates to exclude based on race. It said that the exclusion based on the racial performance. In other words, the difference how the colored body chooses to style itself, the stylistic procedures, the practices, the norms. The National Debate Committee focuses to exclude those considered and others. This style might attack the variability and maintenance of the traditional system. The first thing most grown people think about is high school debate is they think of a white straight man who's dressed in a suit and speaking pretty Nelson Brown, queer whose voice is too feminine. I'm never what the debate space wants. I'm the queer alien the debate space wishes to hide. Borough 17, the debate space and debaters know non-native and native misrepresent native people and frame themselves in a way which they can see that subtle just matter and conform to whiteness and be praised for speaking, also being a native ally. Native people are situations limited between life and death and haunted by the dual specters of sovereignty and genocide. Our demands for scientific and coherent register with land aversions, land theft, treaties and coherent registers and incomprehensible magnitude, rape, massacre, rape, starvation, and boarding on schools and smallpox. The terrain in which everyone can become native or at least advocate for natives cleared the landscape by producing genocide, also significantly produced by anti-black slavery. The history of the native debate representation of those sovereignty and land reparation, the treaty of the House solution to genocide reaches into the present material gains that involve labor, native people, and organized the growth of academic from settlers. Debate actively facilitates the sovereign of the native benefits for native people, both non-native and native people who claim to advocate for native people sovereignty and native debaters who claim to advocate for something that usually falls along the gambit of sovereignty are essentially taking this and register an incredibly limited slippage to the genocidal vectors of violence. What does that mean for the structure of the desire for the recognition of the from the settlers as master? If we really want to follow the history of how nativeness is represented in debate by settlers, it becomes clear that contemporary native debate strangely mimics these representations and debates in a comedy of misrepresentations. The debate space is a toxic vampire to alien bodies. We are chewed up and spat out once the round is over, so somebody can fake being an ally to get a stupid win. Is this vampire's fetishization? We're talking about the end of black and brown queer life. Why do they point a trap of death in something that's progressive in the debate community? Blake 19, gender non-conforming debaters, intersex, non-binary, two-spirit, etc. are seen as alien in debate space and do not sit the settled binary with gender is. This produces anti-gender non-conforming spaces. As a debater conflates the woman and man, and then outside the round, this gender reflects the gender binary races of existence of transgenders debaters. And the implication: if you aren't woman X, then you are male passing. If you are man, then you are female passing. The code, the extension of intersex, non-binary, multi-gender people. This also reinforces the toxic notions of the society within large, and they contribute to the gender dysphoria and self-loathing. Good debater problem, which signifies a cycle because the trans folk are left out with the feel-good debaters as trans roles models because the status quo good debaters is performative behaviors as the system debater adopts the same transphobic microaggressions as a lack of the compassion of realization of its gender and only computes to permeates the community. Part 3, I and the alien, thus I reject the topic and the normative debate space entirely. I embrace the alien, I become in the debate space. The role of that is for you to judge, / after not watching this to get rid of the structural violence in this to people in the debate space deemed as alien life. The AF advocates for pre-fiat change to the bodies deemed alien by forcing the conversation around how debate space doesn't like us in the first place and ending the violence. The AF talks about how the debate space operates and how non-aliens have full totalitarian reign over the focus on discussion and discourse over it. This means to be aliens are treated. Change how you view the debate space. I'm pretty sure you weren't expecting an alien negative on the Medicare topic. I'm sure the shock value is part of the movement. My mother discussing the debate space such out anti-alien strategies is using personal narratives as my struggle to become an alien chips away the inequality rooted at the core of the debate space outright refusing the norms of debate, embracing the alien. I'll skip that last part. And on the case, their case is racist. They use black indigenous people mentioned once, and they say that, and they said that I should surrender queerness. They help the majority in the world and the AF, which is white queers. The utilitarianism uses justify racial injustice to use whites. Sorry, skip over that part. They use white saviorism in their case to talk about how black and about black and indigenous people. They use white saviorism in the debate space to talk about how white saviorism produces toxic vampirism in the debate space to actually tell non-indigenous and black debaters to help the debaters in order to gain ballot wins in order to further debate careers. They go to 17. And there's one thing white people do not need is the space for people, the exclusion and expense of people of color. White folks need to ask themselves they're doing this work because it's moral imperative or because they want accolades and kudos to soothe their white guilt. Many white people combating racism are so busy checking their privilege that they forgot to check their own egos. I do, however, insist that the day's anti-racism initiatives say in their language do not call POC movements and center themselves in any way by creating bubbles within white supremacy where to see the practice anti-racism, we're applying those bubbles with the areas remain unchallenged. Why anti-racism serves as so the safety nets for protecting allies from their own failures and almost simultaneously keeping people of color at a distance. That cut the card right there. This turns their case about how they help queer people, but they only help white queer people. I give this example by they use Black and Indigenous people only once in their case, and this completely goes back to how my method of how we embrace alienation. Like, yes, even if they do win that they embrace queer alienation of the debate space, we still embrace both Black and Indigenous Black and Indigenous alienation in the debate space, which my opponent actively contributes to by using them as part of their strategy in order to win this round. I'm pretty sure after this round, they won't care about what happens to the Black or brown debaters after this debate round. Use my method because my method isn't rooted in whiteness, unlike theirs. That's time. Okay. I'm moving for cross.
Okay, let me get a timer up really quick.
Okay, cool.
Okay, you said you're ready, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start on the K. How does the AF link?
The AF links because we basically just say that you don't embrace like the full,
Wait, how do we not embrace alienation?
Because you don't embrace you don't embrace Indigenous and Black alienation in the debate space.
But isn't the white saviorism dissat about how white debaters shouldn't be doing that because it's white saviorism?
Yeah, we were saying we shouldn't do your thing.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
But that we shouldn't do white saviorism, but we should also be able to talk about how the debate space is bad for Indigenous and Black people. That's not the same thing as white saviorism. White saviorism is extinction, solving for Black and brown extinction.
Okay, wait, repeat the last part.
It's solving for Black and brown extinction. We're
okay,
that's
wait, so how can the AF how can the AF center Black and Indigenous people without being a white savior?
You can embrace the alienation of everyone in the debate space, what the negative does.
Okay, cool. Is that how is that mutually exclusive with the AF?
Wait, can you rephrase your question, please?
How is embracing the alienation of Black and Indigenous people also and queer people, how are those two things mutually exclusive?
I mean, you could talk about how queer, Indigenous, and Black people are also harmed as the majority of queer life. We would also say that's not white saviorism. You could have done that, but you didn't.
Okay, so, but you told me that you don't want me to read stuff about how our theory explains Black and Indigenous violence also. So,
I mean, it's really up to it's up to you to decide how you want to move forward in the debate. If you want to contribute to white saviorism, go ahead. But there's a fine line between contributing to there's a line between contributing to white saviorism and also being a productive ally and not using them in the debate space, because we say that you use them in the debate space because you only mentioned them once. If your entire case was centered around Black and Indigenous queer people, then we would have said that that's not white saviorism. If that makes sense.
It's weird for me using Black and Indigenous struggles whenever I'm not Black or Indigenous.
I mean, it's up to you to decide. It's not up for I don't tell you how to debate.
Go on to your roll of ballot. How are we? Or I guess we kind of already covered that. On the case stuff, how are we only helping white queer people? There are Black and Indigenous queer people. As you address in your case.
We say you only help white queer people because we Impact turned the helping Indigenous and Black people by using the white saviorism, because you cannot both be a white savior and help Black and Indigenous people at the same time.
Okay, so, but how do we? I'm still confused on how we link to the white saviorism dissad.
Because you only mentioned them once. You only mentioned the struggle of Indigenous and Black people once.
I could mention them more in the 1AR.
I mean, if you want to, but you've already only mentioned them once, so you're just contributing to white saviorism by saying, "Oh, I'm sorry
cool.
that I only mentioned them once."
On your roll of the ballot, where's the warrant?
Where's the warrant? Can you rephrase the question, please?
Where's the warrant for the roll of the ballot?
Part 3, I'm an alien. There's the roll of the ballot is
I'm reading that, but I don't see the warrant.
There's no card, if that's what you're asking.
Whatever. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and start prep. Okay, I'm stopping prep. Okay. So the order is gonna be the stuff, or okay, so the order is gonna be the 1AC, like extensions of the 1AC, and then new stuff, and then on the performance, and then on the on the case again. So like the responses to the case. So, which is like the white saviors and Dissad and stuff.
Is there any new cards?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna put them in the speech drop in a second.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Okay. All right. Cool. I'm getting a timer up. Is anyone not good to start?
I think still downloading. Hold on.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, it downloaded.
Okay. So you're good for me to start?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So in the order again, extensions, then new stuff, then the performance, then the case responses. All right. Starting with the thesis, the topic isn't a new kind of debate. It's literally the same state lord bullshit that queer people are forced to participate in every single season on every single topic. It's just a new waiver. Queer bodies to be policed for talking about how we struggle, and our theory of power is that the image of the child is a fantasy created for futures or political projects to project their desires onto, can never coincide with the signifier in the future, for the future, because queer people have no future in the world with child politics on both ends of the spectrum are guilty of futuristic political discourse based around the figure of child proliferating reproductive futurism in which exists in structural antagonism with pure subjecthood. And the impact of the impact is the impact of the round is queer overkill, a kind of ontologically charged violence that literally pushes us out of temporality. Queer violence pushes our bodies beyond normative life death because we are like never normative lives in the first place. Queer bodies exist in a state of social death where queer violence is silenced and our cries are constantly silenced and the shouts of our faggotry to kill us goes beyond our bodies, requires gratuitous violence like that experienced by Rashawn Brazell, who was a black queer person, by the way, and trans femme drag queens in our city or cities every day, which are like the violence faced by them is also predominantly like black queer like trans women. Okay, and then the impact is supercharged by the topic itself. We're talking about healthcare for bodies which are seen as plays on society. Look at what Reagan did for the HIV/AIDS endemic, which is say nothing. We are figures of unsafe sex. We are AIDS bags, and we are faggots. The alt is the death drive in a world governed by the denial subject to queer bodies. The only ethical solution is to call for the end of the world itself by embodying the death drive. We're calling for a rupture of the symbolic order itself in all forums like debate. Itself by forefronting queer issues in the classroom and demanding for the win. It's the only way that queer debaters can ever actually succeed because it exacerbates the contradiction between queerness and success. And surrender to queerness, on the surrender to queerness stuff, debate is already structured against queer people. Fight as a loser, and we don't actually like end up implementing policies in the round by giving queer debaters the win, the win. It makes more sense because there's no like perm between the like app and the neg, because our theory of power is like encompassing the neg, so the neg like doesn't actually like do anything like the vote like on presumption for that. And like the and surrendering to queerness comes to theory, obviously, like even though I don't think they're gonna go for like theory stuff, because debate is structurally unfair to queer people and also like black people, or black indigenous people, which means that it literally just does not make sense for them to go for theory. And like no link to, and onto the like the new stuff, no link to the white saviorism, dissouter theory of power explains how like theirs as we account for black and indigenous people, queer people. In the late 18th century, the child became sinless, sexless, uncorrupted. Soon the concept of childhood and innocence were inseparably intertwined. The innocence and the concept of childhood was used to rationalize this in the violence center around the white citizens subject. The project of constructing innocence created the illusion that the child was detached from issues of race, class, and gender. The ultimate blank slate onto which knowledge which be projected to the brain. This success must be taught. This is an ongoing process. Reproduce whiteness in the form of capital labor. Bernstein 11. Childhood innocence is historically located during the colonial period. Children were innocent, absence of sex and oblivious. The innocence of raced white. The embryonic child angel was phenotypical whiteness. The white innocence was transferable and political. The white child and the enslaved adult created or innocence are extended to African American, but the inverse was equally possible. The white child's embrace could confer innocence upon slavery. Innocence manifested through the transition of class, gender, and race. Innocence was not a performance of not noticing, or innocence was the performance of not noticing. Innocence and forgetting exists in paradoxical tension. The materials and practices around children capitulate capital or adult culture. One century's proverb because the next century's nursery rhyme. The study of childhood challenges history, and the white innocence was the standard by which the other was created. The subaltern and queer exist in paradoxical relation to the non-innocence. The process begins with the juxtaposition of the white queer adult innocence on the overly sexualized, demonized white black body. Bernstein 11. The discourse of sexual innocence of white children, black children were assumed to be ineligible for sexual purity. The sale of enslaved pre-profession were calculated the fertility into their pricing. White future African American children often by their female females, autopsies and sexual construction of the topic like Saturns were excluded African Americans from the realm of passionlessness, sexual innocence, and then just like cut the card there. And then like on the performance stuff, there's no link. We reject the debate space as like aliens, and we account for like in our theory of power other kinds of aliens besides white queer people. So the white saviorism dissent also like doesn't link, and we can center like queer people, which includes like black indigenous queer people. There's no warrant for the roll of the ballot, and like they don't account for their stuff with the roll of the ballot because we can engage with that.
Okay, hold on. Do you mind if I ask you questions while I take prep?
I mean, kinda.
So can I or can I not?
Go for it, I guess.
Okay. I just really have one. So no, actually, never mind. I don't.
Okay, cool.
Wait, you didn't perm it, right?
Which part?
You didn't perm the neg. Yes or no?
I guess.
No.
Actually, yeah, I guess we do. Because the app method is not like mutually exclusive.
Okay. I have one new card. I'm gonna send it. Hold on. I need to place it into a new doc real quick. Okay, hold on. While I paste it, it's just gonna be the performance and then the case. Okay, hold on. Why won't, okay. It's like not letting me paste it into a new document. I don't know why. I can't even open any document. So I'll go really slow when I read the card. There. 6 minutes. Okay. Is anyone not ready? Okay.
Overview, break my performance down into 3 parts: the alienation of myself, debates alienation, and the embrace of the deviant alien. We use this 3-step method popularized by Shona Brinkley in order to pollute the pure space that is debate by not following the rules. We force the negatives we force the affirmatives to surrender themselves in order to have a discussion about the relationship to alienation. My method of becoming an alien in debate space is made by me rooted in the idea that being deviant is good, not surrendering myself to my identity to whiteness to pierce the ballot is good, polluting clean spaces is good. We embrace the differences by doing things like using personal narratives and not being topical and not showing my face in order to show the alien life is good. And we embrace the differences by denying our existence in the debate space that like the debate space wants us to. You can think that our method as all, instead of limiting which aliens we save, like the AFTAs, we embrace all forms of alienation, class, sexuality, gender, etc., or how the app only helps white queer people instead, and then try to be a white savior and help Black and Indigenous people. Framework: get rid of the structural violence in alien life. It should be your priority in the debate. It's priority as an educator in the space. And structural violence is a prerequisite to anything else. Debate has no real spillover, so you cannot change. So you cannot change any pre-fiat problems. And the debate is like inequality. Sorry, debate has no real world spillover. So the only thing you can change is pre-fiat problems in the debate space, like the inequality, deviant bodies. My role about doesn't center whiteness anyway. So like the AF does. Link. We consider all the impacts of the performance, as well as delinking is impossible since the debate space will always harm the alien, even if you account for one part like you do with queer people. You still don't account for all the aliens affected, like Black and Indigenous people. Perm. There is no perm. You cannot be a white savior and help Indigenous and Black debaters that want which is like the entirety of the negative and what the negative trying to do. So there's no perm. So no attempts at the perm can even be made since you cannot be both a white savior and try to help Indigenous and Black debaters. Now I'm gonna read it slowly. They don't do anything to help. They don't do anything for anyone here. They don't do anything for anyone. White people do not get an explanation of what white saviorism is. Murphy 21, enter the white saviors complex. While helping your fellow humans may be a noble idea, the white savior complex is something that can stand in the way of addressing work that needs to be done. Whether this is consciously or unconsciously, people have this underlying belief that they know best or that they have the skills Black people don't. White savior is a century-old concept that can be traced back to the days when white Westerners believed they inherently had the knowledge, skill, and ingenuity to solve problems that all the people around the world couldn't. White saviorism is still alive in the world today, within the walls of the United States today. It takes the tens of Soviet slogan providing immediate solutions, like which the AF does, especially during humanitarian crises, to people at the individual level. The white saviors approach does not look beyond the immediate needs. In other words, the long-term needs of individuals and communities are not addressed. We address all these problems in the debate space, like the long-term problems in the debate space, which the AF doesn't do. They only address like the short-term problems, which is like the effects of queerness to Black and Indigenous people. So there is a link to white saviorism. You as a white person don't get to decide what I deem as white saviorism. They continue to say no link, but you literally talked about how Black and Indigenous people once, then you did not talk about them till I called you out. Don't go back on what you've already said. Whiteness is an independent voter. Don't let white people use bodies of color in the debate space to win. Extend the first card on white saviorism. White people have a sense of entitlement. POC rarely develop. They bring this entitlement with them everywhere. I believe that's why so many white allies treat dismantling racism like they're demanding to speak to the manager at Whole Foods. They want instant gratification. They want to be credited for the inconveniences. If white organizations insist on having a seat at the table, they better get used to being held accountable by people of color. If you're doing this to sleep better at night, I ask you to remove yourself from the fight. Unlike your discomfort, mine is not optional. The white saviorism proves that they don't care about all aliens, which I call out. The structural harms to the all alien bodies in the debate, which comes first, just not the white queer ones. Just a quick once over. And like on to like what they said, like vote on permissibility because I don't do anything. I'm helping all the bodies in the debate space, not just the white queer ones like my opponent does. So do not vote on permissibility because like I do something in the debate space. They say my what's it called? They say my roll of the ballot isn't warranted. I do warrant my roll of the ballot. I literally frame out how the roll of the ballot works and like how it will help the debate space in my 1 and C. So yeah, when like they said I like don't link to the They said my performance doesn't link because they embrace alienation too. I say it does link because they don't embrace all the alienation in the debate space. They only embrace the queer white alienation in the debate space. And like there was like no response to like the not centering like white queer people in the debate space entirely. Once again, like I think this debate at the end of the day is going to come down to whether my opponent is a white savior or if they're not a white savior. Like I said, like white people should not have like the notion to decide what is white saviorism or is not. It should be up to the hands of the people affected by it. So in that case, it's me. And if I deem it as white saviorism, then it should be counted as white saviorism. And you should use the independent voter of like not allowing white people to use Black and brown bodies in the debate space in order to win, because that's just harmful to debate entirely. And it forces Black and brown people in the debate space to be for like their bodies to be used in order to like further someone else's debate career. Once again, there's no perm because you can't both be like Indigenous and Black ally while also being a white savior. Use my methodology because my methodology is not rooted in whiteness, unlike the EIF's, which is only rooted in like centers, which is supposed to center like what they say is everyone, but everyone in their reality just means white queer people, since they are like not doing anything to help Black or brown people. Don't count the stuff that they said about Black and brown people in the in the 2AR. Oh, sorry, in the 1AR, because they just brought it up because I called them out for being a white savior. So that shouldn't be like a part of the debate. They're just trying to cover their own tracks and trying to hide their whiteness in the debate space, which like I think you can tell that I think is a bad decision. Once again, we say that like how like conforming to the structural norms of the debate space, like conforming to the structural norms of the debate space is bad entirely. Vote for the neg because the EIF is rooted in whiteness, and whiteness is bad for the debate space in order for Indigenous and Black people to have a spot at the table. Thank you.
Starting the rest of prep. Okay. Cool. Great. Let me get a timer up and then I'm good. Judges, is anyone not ready?
You're all good.
Okay. Ollie, did you say you were good or?
Yeah, I'm good. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry, I couldn't hear that well. All right. So there's not like that much of an order. I'll like try to signpost, I guess, like where I'm going, but it's pretty much just like a line by line of the 2NR and that, or the like NR, and then like and like extensions. This is kind of like bad practice, but kind of just how I wrote it. Okay. Starting with an overview, actually. All right. Overview on the case. This debate is about which theory of power is better. Ours over-explains theirs because it accounts for both queer and anti-Black and anti-Indigenous violence through the corporality of the child. There's no warrant for the roll of the ballot, whereas we have warrants for ours, which they are like roll the ballot of resisting queer overkill, which they drop. We call for an end of the debate space through a symbolic rupture, which means that they're like the K doesn't link because we're not like calling, or we're not like saying the debate space is good, which was like the primary link. And the K isn't like a K of like white saviorism. It's that's just the disad. It's a K of the debate space, which is like we're not actually engaging in. We don't just address the short-term problems. We don't link to the white saviorism disad. They gave us a double bind problem where we weren't allowed to explain how our theory of power accounts for other alien bodies besides white queer people, but also said that we shouldn't try to explain why we account for like more than white queer people. Like they say that we should mention like more than white queer people, which we do like very obviously in the AC. And then in the 1AR, and then but they told us like literally not to, which means that there's no like hope for even their solution if they're policing other people to like not let them actually address these problems. Like this is not beneficial to their movement at all. And then we embrace more than just white queers. We explain why not just white queer people are accounted for. There's no way for us to engage, and they dropped all of our impacts. We turned the white saviorism disad because they don't actually allow for me to engage, which is the only way for us to actually account for Black and Indigenous people. We link, turn, Trent and Craig. I know that you guys like clash in explaining why one side should win. We are winning on the framework because we provide a warrant for how destroying the world is necessary for our safe engagement in the space. They don't have an actual warrant for why the roll of ballot of like embracing the alien is good. In fact, we can't even engage with the roll of ballot at all. Well, they can engage in mine. Our theory of power was dropped. They just say that you should disregard it because we're being what they deem as big white saviors, but they don't give like an actual rebuttal. And like the white saviorism stuff, they say that we should not like tell them what white saviorism is. But the problem with that is there's no way for us to actually know. Like this is not a static conception that we can determine whether I'm being a white savior or not. It's literally just their decision. So that's like completely vague and terrible for their movement in general because they can't actually determine what is good or bad like within the debate space. And then like just kind of on the line by line now, they don't actually like break the rules like they say in the NR. We aren't limiting our alienation to just white queer people. We have been like very clear throughout the round at how we like center more than just like white queer people, but also Black and Indigenous queer people. It's in the 1AC, it's in the 1AR. Like we it's also like wrong for us to use like the violent experiences of like these soul groups. So we have to do it through a lens of queerness because I'm not like a Black cishet person or Indigenous. And then like the our theory of power over explains theirs. That means we get access to our impacts. There's no like actual warrant for the roll of ballot, so you frame on ours.
Good round.
Good round.
Yes, that was a good round to watch.